Have you been to my side of the world?
I've never left Europe. I've never left Europe. I went around Europe with my dad to lots of countries about 40 years ago. But no, I've never left Europe.
Hold on, are you in the UK or in Europe?
No, I'm in the UK. But I have been to Europe. I've not been to any other continent.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a pity. You must come. It's great down here.
I'd love to come if I'm allowed out of the country, depending how things turn out in this trenches. But I'd love to,
I play with that metaphor all the time, the trenches and information war and battle of ideas. But we kind of are in even a physical war, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Physical weapons, and mainly mental weapons, I think.
Well, what I mean is like vaccines.
Vaccines, yeah, absolutely. I mean, right from the beginning, they've just been, as we're finding out. I mean, do you know Catherine Watt and Sasha Latipova, just pointing out that right from the start, they were just carnage and unnecessarily so.
It's the transmission failure substack that just absolutely gripped me.
It's quite a short one, isn't it, really? I mean, and it's just a list of 220 years of transmission experiments and a big nod to Daniel Reutas, who's compiled them in his book. And then there's his other substack, what really, no, not really. I was ill, so what was it? Another one, Yeah, I mean, I'm so proud to be working with Mike because I've watched somebody change his views upon evidence without flicking a switch, without dropping. Well, I don't know what the metaphor is, but honestly, it's fantastic to see because a career like that, and he'll go, hang on, no, okay, that's that. So it's been very inspirational, and I'm amazingly proud to have worked for him. I mean, yeah, it was just out of the blue. Because he was with Robin Minotti, and they just weren't. Some things weren't gelling. So Mike left Robin Minotti, and I'd been talking to him, DMing and stuff. So I said, I know you don't like social media and all that stuff. Do you want me to set up your Telegram? And I thought, there's no chance, because he's a hero of the world, I think. And a week later, he said, yeah, go on, let's go for it. And that's how it started, really. And now he's one of my, I love him. He's one of my best friends, and, it's been fantastic, I think I've mentioned it before, but, some people, we've all got some degree of persona and professional mask and everything and with some people like Mike, you can just see that you're talking right through to the integrity of his core. You're getting the real deal, and it's not always easy to see that. So so I've got total trust for him because I think it shines. We're all trying to decide who to trust. I think even Paul Ryan has had question marks from some people, but I think it's looking more and more clear that for 4 years I haven't had an illness. Since I understood that you can't catch it and all that psychological bullshit goes, it's amazing. But no, I've been fighting vaccines since my first son was conceived. And somebody gave me a leaflet in the playground because there was no internet in those days, and I think it was, Dr. Hadwin's address. And I thought, well, this doesn't look right, and with a bit of that, because there was books and this, I go, oh, no, I'm not going to vaccinate my son, or my other children, and it was a gut feeling at first, and then as I went through looking at all the stuff, I realised, but it was very hard in those days to get any traction talking to people at all. You're a complete pariah. But I still had no idea that germ theory was dodgy until, probably early 2021, really. Yeah, about that Sam Bailey video.
Yes, Sam also was my gateway.
Oh, right. Yeah. Which one was it for you?
I can't remember. It was. I think it was like already back in 2022. Well, let me just quickly give you an anecdote here, and let's see. Let's share stories here. So in 2019, I wasn't entirely a normie, but I think I was a hell of a lot more normie then. I didn't buy into the climate change thing already, and there were a few other things I was questioning.
Oh, that's
like
good.
the moon landing, and whatever else. But
9/11.
20, yeah. No, I don't think I was questioning 9/11 actually in 2019.
Okay. Because that's quite an
I
early
think-
one for some people, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
It's
9/11 is in. Yeah, it's an interesting litmus test, isn't it?
yeah, especially now with the 3 layers. I mean, for a while I was in layer 2 and going to everybody, explosives, and then you see fresh wood, and you literally say, where did the towers go then? And you go,
Yes.
And then you've got something else to think about.
Yes, I was going to give you an anecdote. So,
Sorry, anecdote.
In 2020, I saw this, like we all did. I saw this thing unfolding in northern Italy, and I thought at the time that it was just another kind of virus spreading, and I came to the conclusion that it was very mild and it was nothing really to worry about. And then suddenly, when everybody started getting locked down in March, and it was just beyond coincidence. And I started thinking something doesn't make sense here. And that was when I started thinking a bit deeper. And I remember towards the end of 2020, my wife came walking down the stairs, and I think I was busy watching the first sort of documentary about the events of COVID. And in it, they were suggesting that that there was no such thing as SARS-CoV-2. It hadn't been isolated. And I cannot remember now what the documentary was. Anyway, so she came down the stairs, and I looked at her and I asked her, what if this whole thing's not real? And that kind of led into 2021. And then I started thinking more and more and more about the existence of COVID. I hadn't really questioned viruses. And I think it was around the end of 2021 where I stumbled across Sam Bailey. And then I was fascinated by this idea that viruses don't exist. And I thought, this is bonkers.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then, yeah. Anyway, so what's your story?
Well, so obviously, as probably like you, beginning to see that large elements of the COVID narrative didn't seem to make sense. I mean, everyone's doing all this stuff, and I'm going, do you know anybody who's got really ill? At all? Do you know anybody who's died and dropped dead? At that stage, we're talking about early 2020, and going, oh, well, and you're going, what do you mean, oh, well, use your eyes, look around you. It didn't make any sense, but it was, and then, you see more and more things, and you kind of, more and more skittles get knocked over. And then I was watching the Sam Bailey video on Spanish flu, and, and I watched it, and I was thinking, hang on, this, well, you're not saying that there wasn't a flu, yeah, but you are obviously saying that, but, and it really was, it was like, well, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And then, but I was only thinking that because I was so, I've been a bloody scientist all my life, and kind of everything science. And I still love what science should be. But you realise that this this precious little science.
Wait,
Sorry.
I've got a, like, we can.
got a beeper. Oh, that's right. I'll warn you next time I do it. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and it didn't make any sense. So I looked at more, and I got virus mania. Well, first of all, I saw her interview about Kernline, and just how exciting. I'm now going to be involved with a new version of virus mania. And so, okay, well, I'll get that. And I read it top to bottom. It's a very thick book, and it's brilliant in the sense that you can't possibly read it and come out thinking without serious doubts or I just, and then you start looking more and more from Jamie Andrews. Well, Stefan Lanka, Stefan Lanka's the big guy.
Yes, exactly. So that for me was really mind blowing. So from Sam's videos, I started. I was still using Google then. I haven't used Google in about 2.5 years now, but I was still Googling stuff then, and I stumbled across Stefan Lanka, and then from there, a whole new world kind of opened.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and then there's early Lanka, and then there's late Lanka now, and you're going, I'm struggling to keep up with that. But combination of Lanka and Hamer, German medicine, I'm finding is very, very. I mean, it's so positive to think. Hang on, what if the body isn't going wrong? What if it's possibly stuck in a cycle of some? But what it's actually doing, healing stuff. And I mean, you look at Hamer and German medicine, you think, well, actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's nearly all psychological. All these shocks that biological shocks that we're not ready for, and they have these effects, and they have to come out in physical forms because they can. And and the whole new biology thing, it's these bits and pieces. Are they really there? Doesn't look like it really. This tiny little Meccano's bits that it's all supposed to be made of. It's doesn't seem to have any backing.
When I was chatting to Jessica Hockett a few months ago, she's got a wonderful Substack and she's very funny. I strongly recommend following her. She summed up perfectly the whole COVID era, because if you look at her Substack, she has focused a lot on the New York hospital data. So she said to me, in 2020, I started out looking at the hospital data in New York, and I ended up questioning whether or not we landed on the moon.
That's all. Yeah, all of us. Yeah, you get rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and you go, well, that one's obviously ridiculous. I'm going to park that one. And then a few months later, and then you go, oh, yeah, that one too. Yeah, no, that's too. Oh, yeah, that's a fake. That was staged. That didn't happen. That was completely inverted. That's bollocks science. And then you start thinking, well, what is left? Which is why I started, my two-color protocol thing, where you just say, well, what actually is real that you know, and what are the stories that are on top of it? There might be good stories, but just keep them separate. So that's what do I actually know? Because otherwise, it's so easy to join the dots, isn't it? I mean, I've probably like you, for a while I was believing gain of function, saying, oh, it's a man-made virus. Oh, look at the clues. It's got these bits, and then you go, oh, yeah, no, yes, it was man-made in a computer. It's not real, and so you go down one rabbit hole, and then a bit later you go, oh no, that one's, because I do think that there are lots of rabbit holes deliberately put for the unwary, and to get critical thinkers locked into kind of sometimes nonsense. Although the vast majority of conspiracy theories do seem to be have some accuracy.
I'll tell you one that I think might be a trap. And I have to be careful here because it's a bit of a minefield, but it's the perpetual Jew thing the whole time. Because the world is a lot more complex than just the Jews.
I think that's a trap, yeah. I mean, I think it's a combination of a trap, and also maybe deliberately, very carefully laid scapegoat trap, really, which I do think it involves the conflation of two very different things. It's supposed to be anti-Semitic to conflate Israel with Judaism, and yet, or Zionism with Judaism, and yet they are completely conflated, and they shouldn't be, because I'm very happy to stand against Zionism, which I think is a terrible supremacy doctrine that probably it looks like made by the West and shoved in there to cause trouble. But that's, so it's very difficult when things get lumped in together and you're going, Yeah, I mean, it's all the Muslims, it's all the Jews, and all these, and it can't be coincidence that all these people are fighting each other. You know, that's what it's intended, isn't it? They want us all divided. By and large, you know, people are great, unless they've been mangled a lot and are a bit defensive and ended up fighting for their own corner in a way that's a bit insane. But most people, I find, if you give them half a chance, in the right situation, they're there to help. They're there to be friendly. You know, so you can't. It's ridiculous to say this entire group. I call it umbrellaing, where because you can't use words like racism and prejudice. They're loaded and complicated. So I just call it umbrellaing, where you say, I'm going to take all these people, and then I'm going to take these small group who claim to act in the name of all these people, and I'm going to judge the whole people on the basis of these people who say they are in this group. I mean, I think that's what you're referring to, really. Oh, excuse me, sorry. A bit loud here.
Like me, I'm sure many in my audience hadn't heard of you, still might not even know who Tim West is. So who is Tim West?
Tim West is a complex character. No, I'm not really. So I was... So you know, I was brought up kind of like classical music-y and science, and I was in the National Youth Orchestra over here, playing bassoon, the contrabassoon. It's quite humorous to see me, aged I think 12 or 15 or something, playing this huge contrabassoon. And so I went to a paid school. So I was all very interested, and it was a very good one. So I was into all sorts of stuff, and I was all quite knowing and everything. And then I went to Cambridge and did maths, and with forays into the things like quantum mechanics and economics, and all. And then when I left Cambridge, I kind of basically started doing what I always have been mostly, which is a musician. And so that's what I've been doing. And then, really, I stumbled on because I'd done so much music, and I was teaching one day in I used to be head of music at an adult college. That's an amazing story, because I've had no teaching qualifications, and I was busking on the street, and a woman from a private primary school said, "Oh, you're what we need for head of music." So I came in, was head of music there, and then after there for a bit, this kind of huge adult college was the last days of this maverick leader. You know, before everything became, all the shutters came down everywhere. You've got to have accredited accreditations. This is the new system. You can't comply to pass through, you know. But it was just before that, and so she put me as head of music at this huge adult college. It was like 20,000 students in the music department, and 20 tutors. Sorry, 2,000 students and 20 tutors to look after, and that was quite fun. So I was there, all but all the time I'm in the bands, and then when I was teaching one day to this long anecdote of a class called Piano for Pleasure. Now, I don't know if you know, adult colleges often they're a very good way of people to get back into society. People who may be a little not so good at communicating with others, or have problems. So I had a class of 10 people who wanted to learn to play jazz piano, and I tried every way I knew to teach the basic bum bum 5/1 chord, the simple case. And I'd come back next week and say, right, who can play me just a 5/1 in C? And then there was some blank stares again. I was thinking, okay, and I thought there must be a way. And then one day I was on the board and it collided all together. My degree in maths, and doing lots of that since then, and wanting to get this idea of music right. And suddenly I saw something that was, oh my goodness. Anyway, so it really made me, I've stumbled on the fact that this music is really simple. I'm making a video now on music theory where I reckon you can understand all of it in no time at all. It's so simple, and some things have been missed. So and I started doing more programming and making things. But anyway, basically, really all went back into full science mode in 2020. I ended up, I live in a van. This is my home. I live in a mobile home for 4 years. I wasn't quite welcome with my ideas where I was living, and it wasn't my house. So that was that. And I've got a music studio worker. But then, sorry, this is a bit rambling, isn't it? But basically, I started. What I am now is I would say now is I'm the, to me, the most important thing is I'm a small child pointing at a naked emperor. And I'm not showing anything new, and I'm not doing anything radical. But the two-color protocol is what I really am most interested in people understanding, because it's just saying, stop believing bullshit. That's all it is. Because, basically in science, you've got two things. You've got data, actual real stuff. That happened. I saw it. That's real. And then you've got all the stories woven around it. And what's happened is stories that seem quite good and get true, they've been shoved into the real world as if they're true. And there's a load of stuff that we're told is true. And that's, as you know, like viruses kill. That's just one of many. So how do you stop all this nonsense happening in science? So the two-color protocol says it's very simple. Just make sure in your paper that you make sure you clearly distinguish what is the data and what is the model. Because the model, if it's a universal model, it's never going to be true because it might be proved wrong any day. You've got to be very careful. So if you do that process, then you end up being sane and scientific. So this is what I really would, and I say small child because it's like I'm not offering anything new. I'm just saying, just be careful. You don't take a story and act as if it's truth. I mean, it's not really a radical thing to say, but what I'm saying is none of us do it very well. I'm learning more to do it all the time. You put your narratives on top of something. You're in a bar and somebody looks at you funny. You think. I'm not saying this is a true story, but somebody looks at you funny and then they accidentally knock your drink over. And he's having a bad time. He's having trouble with his girlfriend and he knocks your drink over. He turns around to say sorry and he's going like that. And anyway, long short of it, you misinterpret everything with your narrative on top of it. You're banned from the bar and because and all this. So this in practical situations everywhere, you've got to say, hang on. How much of what I'm aware of now is, but which bits are actually what is true and which bits are narrative? And my claim is that we're not very good at it, and I'm not. But we've got to focus on it. But in science, it just has to be fundamental. Fundamental in science.
Science is very broken, isn't it?
It is very, very broken. It's completely broken. There's very little science in it because it's not scientific. I mean, virology is not scientific, is it? You can't say you're going to prove something by saying something exists by saying we're going to take some fluid containing the virus, and you go, sorry, you can't say you can't assume the existence of the virus in order to prove the existence of the virus. That's just not even remotely scientific. And yet the entire field is based on it, and the whole world was shut down on it. So yeah, science is very broken, and it can be mended, I think. By a rigorous, very rigorous. So, for example, in every paper, I would say you can colour every sentence green or pink. If it's actual real stuff that you witnessed, it's green. If it's a story, then it's pink. And if you're saying, for example, that a virus is a green thing, an actual existing thing, you can say, okay, well, at the moment in your paper, you haven't shown that. Show me the first paper where it was established as a real thing rather than just a story. So, I've got my video about space badgerology. Space badgers. Mike likes my space badgers. He's always quoting them now, which is nice. You can do the same virology experiments to prove that it's space badgers. Because you say, I'll take some glue containing space badgers. I'm going to put it in the cells, starve them. Oh, the cells are dead. Brilliant. And space badgers kill them. Yeah, you can't just invent something and then say that something would happen if this was existed, and you see that happen and say it must exist. I mean, it's like the Santa thing with if Santa exists, you'll find presents under the tree. But you can't just go and say, oh, look, we had a look and there were presents under the tree, therefore Santa exists. But that's what virologists do. And yeah, science is full of all that. Dark matter. Do you believe in dark matter? Mathematical models treated as reality. And I'm doubting Einstein now for lots of reasons. When you look at the actual evidence, these big structures are put on us, and you go, okay, and you go, hang on, this lovely story is really beautiful and it makes a lot of sense. Oh, yeah. But, how much actual data backs it up? And there's precious little. And, you can do anything with Newton mechanics. I'm not saying Newton mechanics is correct, but I'm just saying using Newtonian mechanics, you can do pretty much everything. Well, everything, really. I mean, computers are one to discuss. But dark matter and dark energy are the maddest things ever. So they look in the universe and they say, it's not actually behaving as our equations say it should. So they say, what we need is that there's 70% of the universe is undetectable dark matter, which is no way of detecting it, and it's there, and we know it's there because otherwise the equations wouldn't work, would they? And a normal person would say, what, you're going to invent 70% of the universe just to make sure the equations are correct? That's not very logical. But they don't stop there, because then they say, oh, hang on, with all this extra weight, the universe should be collapsing a lot faster than it is. So there must be a lot of dark energy which is pushing the universe apart, which, again, you can't measure. So now we're at the stage where I think it's 97, is it, or 99.7% of the universe is supposedly stuff you can't see, measure, or anything, and it only exists to make the theories right. And that's not science, is it?
And it all started with the Big Bang, where everything appeared out of nothing. It's apparently collapsing into itself, but it's also expanding into itself. But it's infinite, and yet it's not infinite. But nobody can explain what's on the other side of the. The whole thing's just so stupid. And then they want to point fingers. They want to point fingers at people who are religious, and then laugh at them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. People say, "Oh, well, if this story is a bit silly, what's the real story then?" Well, that's a separate question. That's great to look at, but you don't need to know. I like to say you don't need to know whose pocket the watch is if you're trying to show that it's not in Johnny's pocket. If you want to show Johnny's not stolen the watch, you do not need to. Well, who's got it then? That's what people do when they argue. You say, "Look, there's no watch in Johnny's pocket," and they go, "Oh yeah, well then who's got it?" They say, "It doesn't matter. Just concentrate on the fact that one's wrong." And so, sorry, that's slightly off what you said. Yeah, they mock people who've got other narratives and ways of understanding the world, and yet theirs is absolutely cock-a-hoop. And I love science. I'm all my life science, and I still love science. But there's not much of it in science, in the citadel of science. Yeah, I mean, religion's a big thing for me. I think we might differ slightly in some ways, but not in core, I reckon.
My position on religion is that I think that it's part of the human condition to believe in something greater. Humans have always believed in something greater. I don't think there's been a time in recorded history where humans haven't done that. I think if you put them on an island, they'll eventually create some sort of creator or deity. Animals don't do that. And I think it's one of the things that sets us apart, because belief in something bigger than ourselves it's a part of our sort of self-awareness. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? So I intrinsically don't oppose that. And I think removing it would be an artificial attempt. I mean, we know that the Klaus Schwab, or not even Klaus Schwab, Yuval Harari has stated, that a world without religion would be great. because when you do that, then they'll latch onto something else to believe in, which could be the state or the technocratic oligarchs.
Well, they're going to supply. I mean, he's slightly lying, isn't he? Because he knows very well that they're going to supply a world religion. They've got it all worked out by the it looks it's based on the faith. They're going to manufacture one world. You couldn't make this stuff up. You couldn't make this stuff up. They've got the headquarters of UN looking like the Tower of Babel. They want everybody speaking the same language, literally by accreditation and interoperable systems. They want everybody believing the same religion. I mean, they are literally doing they want to be God, don't they? I mean, he doesn't even hide it. They want to be, and I think they're just insane. But they are insane. I think a lot of them believe this really kind of weird stuff, don't they? Which you can call it occult and stuff. They've got their own kind of strange religion, which is quite prevalent, I think, even though it might come in very.
When was your first major red pill moment? You asked me earlier about 9/11.
I think 9/11. Yeah, it must have been. Is it Loose Change, the movie, or something? What was it? So it was 2000. So 2001. So yeah, I think it must have been around 2009 or 10. I think that I saw that. But yeah, I blithely watched two steel and concrete structures completely collapse onto their footprints and disappear in one day, and I didn't think anything of it until like a few years later. It's crazy how when you're looking back, you think, oh my God, no wonder they got away with it. I mean, a big lie like that, it's crazy, isn't it? But yeah, but that was definitely my first. I can't remember whether that was before or after back looking at vaccines. It probably was before, I think. It was probably before, yeah. And
I think mine was climate change
around
2009.
Oh, is it? Okay. And what was that? The
climate change. I think that was mine. Yeah, that was my first big one.
You beat me on that one. I didn't get that until 2020. It's like, 2020. Not really, because I'm a big scientist, and I'm so good on you.
Something that I've been thinking about a lot is the potential dangers of what's the word I'm looking for now? Hyperspecialization.
Specialization means that you can't see the whole picture. You just do your little bit. And increasingly, it looks like quite a lot of science is not just driven by money, but is also driven by usefulness for the controlling perps, sadly. So that's how you do it, isn't it? You get everybody on a little job and nobody knows the bigger jobs, and then it all joins together. And at the top, you've got this ironclad system. I mean, Jamie was saying that, the whole basis of the virology fraud is the fetal bovine serum or other nutrient. So the nutrient they put in 10%, then they reduce it to 2% as they add the gloop, or just before they add the gloop. Now, what Jamie's done is just reduce its 2% in these top labs without adding anything, and exactly the same effect happens. Everything's so special. I don't know why I've lost my thread, or I started that again. So this happens to me. You've probably noticed I'm a little bit tangenty, so you can rein me in.
What is the purpose of a hospital?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question nowadays. Certainly, I've changed my mind rapidly. I wouldn't go anywhere near one unless, if you've been in a car accident, they're probably good at putting bits and pieces together. And they completely don't understand the human body. They think every act of healing is something going wrong that needs to be crushed with poisons and all sorts. I mean, and I don't think everybody who works at the bottom level knows everything that they've got. But as Mike says, after a while, any doctor who is not noticing that the COVID jab is resulting in damage, it is really not paying attention, or is deliberately not paying attention, really. So, but to a large extent, those at the bottom, they just follow the procedures, don't they? Like you say, specialization. I do this and do that, and they just follow orders. So I think it's not too far. Many people have described, Catherine Watts described hospitals, as killing floors, and we know the midazolam, morphine, remdesivir saga, they literally were just obviously killing people. And I mean, what's the hospital for? I've got a wonderful friend who's I know jolly well how much he cares. Absolutely, I bet, and this is a large part, I think, of the usefulness of doctors is the care, not the stuff that's given. But it's very hard, isn't it? Because it's like you have to reprogram yourself. And okay, it's one thing for me to reprogram myself about germ theory, being a musician and a scientist and a musical scientist. That's not going to affect my income or my children. I think you said before, you have to. It's a thin line. You have to be careful. Each person has to decide. But I do think some people were cowardly and should have stood up. But it's not easy unless you're walking in another man's shoes, is it, to know exactly what you would have done given the looming mortgage, the so-and-so debt, the children, and well, I could just delay it a bit. I'll just work, so I'm not really judging, except for it's been weird to watch.
This is an issue I have with a lot of people in the, shall we say, skeptic movement or community, or whatever you want to call it, the conspiratorial side of society, is that they end up being the very people they criticize. They become too binary. It's either 1 or 0. There's no room for nuance. There's no room for gray. There's no room for complexity.
No. I think I like a good conversation, good faith conversation with anybody. I find it difficult when people get aggy with me. I find it difficult, especially if I think that sounds like an attempt to trigger. You're having a chat with your mate in the pub, and you're both trying to reach understanding, truth, up the hill of truth, And if someone's like putting barbs in, I'm not really interested in this conversation, whatever. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Ask that last question again. Sorry.
I get annoyed by people who are too binary.
Oh, sorry,
in their
the binary
thinking.
business. Yeah. The only thing that you should be binary about is data. You can be aware
can you?
Data. Well, you certainly can in your own life. So I can be aware that I've got my iPhone sitting here. That's not a story. I mean, okay, you can start going into there is a whole discussion about that, but basically there's a real world, as far as I'm concerned. There's a real world with stuff that you experience that goes on, and there's many stories. Some of them will get close to the real world, but I like to keep them separate. So it's so you can be binary about whether you are aware that in the literature that you have never seen and have asked for and have never found a virus isolation control study that didn't keep the control one that kept the only ones they do where they keep the nutrient serum high. It's just crazy. They say, why are you feeding the cell when you put it in the control? That's stupid. Of course it's going to survive. Oh yeah, no, it's silly. I think it's you can be. I'm clear that I know I have never seen any evidence for any aspect of germ theory, and I have looked. Now, there may be some out there, and I may have, but that's what so I know this fact. This is a fact I know. That's green stuff, that's real stuff. So that's the data, and then so I think you can sometimes be. I think you can be very careful. I know it's hard always to separate because we overlay our models on everything, and it's very difficult. But I think you can have a good go at trying to. So that's all I can say about virus. So I never say viruses don't exist because that's a belief. That's a belief. I would say it is a fact that there's no evidence for viruses. So I go for the green stuff. I go for this is the fact. And I'm saying if I'm wrong, well, that's why I've started the Virus Confirmation Fund. It's on 73,000 now. Mike and Jamie and lots of other people pledging. Love you to pledge. Basically, we're all saying, you give me hard evidence that any virus has ever existed, the money's yours. So it's meant to say, I'm not saying viruses definitely don't exist. I'm not saying unicorns definitely don't exist. All I'm saying is I've got no evidence for either, and I'm certainly not going to lock down the world in case there's an angry unicorn rampaging with its horn. So you that in that sense you can be clear about the data. But I think you're right. Anything that's a narrative, and somebody says 1 or 0 when it's not a piece of data, when it's a story, like viruses exist. That's a good one. People say viruses don't exist. I don't like that terminology because that's a 1-0 thing on a story, as you say.
I also don't like to say viruses don't exist because it could be the case that they do exist and will only be discovered in 150 years' time.
Exactly. That's exactly, yeah. That's it. And also, if you say it, yeah, go on.
Yes. But so, and it's also not a scientific statement because true scientists should not be making dogmatic or absolutist claims.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I call that brown stuff because I keep it simple. We've got pink stuff is the brain stuff, green stuff is the terrain, and if you put pink stuff and treat it as green stuff, pink and green makes brown. Bullshit. So yeah, if you say viruses don't exist, you're talking bullshit because you're not scientific.
Yeah, but also, Tim, they could change the definition in 30 years' time, and then suddenly viruses will exist. Yes, again. So this is what I'm saying. Absolutist or dogmatic statements are not very good.
No, that's right. That's very good. Yeah, that's very good. I mean, that's really important because they're always changing the definitions anyway. So if you have a phrase, yeah, absolutely. You should not speak something that's not true, I think. And so I understand why people say viruses don't exist. They use it as shorthand for viruses don't exist is a confident statement I'm making about the same as unicorns don't exist. So what I'm saying is I'm operating, or that cups drop. I'm operating on the fact that it seems very strong to me. But that. Instead, they wrap it all up and say viruses don't exist. So I just say viruses are fictional.
And I'm not even interested so much whether or not viruses exist, if I'm being honest. I'm interested more in whether or not contagion is real.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Because, I mean, the other thing is that there are rumors from all these supposed viruses that the next hoax-demic will be a bacterial hoax-demic. So everybody can be tooled up knowing that viruses don't exist. But you've actually got to go deeper, haven't you? Like, you have to go deeper into the terrain understanding to say, actually, there's no little baddies out. I like to say that there's nothing in nature out to get us smaller than a Fauci. That's what I like to say.
Yeah, it's people don't want to think about this. They don't want to just spend 5 minutes thinking, why did I get sick? And why did my wife not get sick?
Yeah, they've got the answer. Oh, I caught it from. I wonder who I caught it from. That's the first thought, So that's no, yeah. It's been brilliantly indoctrinated. So, like you, coming to that same notion. I like that. My newest starting point is to say, if contagion is possible, okay, if contagion is possible, let's say contagion is possible and you can catch something. Is it feasible that contagion is possible? And yet, for 6,000 years, this is the big one for me, no culture anywhere in the world noticed it. Even thousands of years of Chinese medicine, thousands of years of Indian medicine, all sorts of other nobody spotted that you can catch a cold. It's clear that this is a story that we've been given, and we interpret everything through that story because it's a brilliant story for getting people to, it's genius. I don't know if it was thought up deliberately or whether it was just a combination of ineptitude and fraud and all sorts, but it's the perfect way of control, isn't it? You can't go near your neighbour, you can't hug your granny, you can't go out of your house. Oh, it's all based on this notion. But as I say, so 6,000 years, is it possible? You know, Aristotle was writing about yawning being contagious like a couple of thousand years ago. He spotted that. Do you think everybody was stupid and that people would have a cold and then go to the Senate House and then everybody gets a cold and nobody noticed? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So that's my new starting point. It looks likely from that it's just a recent story, doesn't it? I mean, so that's.
So somebody might be listening to us chatting about this and going, okay, sure. So let's say you can't catch something from somebody. Cool. Now what?
Well, I mean, for one thing, all the swathe of stuff goes from people chopping at the leaves, as you know, I think as Jamie said, you know, all the swathe. Vaccines, masks, distancing, lockdowns, antivirals, antibiotics, all sorts of treatments, war medicine. Quite a lot comes from it. But also individually, 4 years, I have not been ill, apart from the 2 times when I stayed up all night, drank too much, recording, and because I do a lot of recording. And I'm 60. I stayed up all night, and and so I was a bit ill the next day. But apart from that, I've not got ill. And I think that's largely due to the fact that we're very susceptible to the notion. I think that I've never found it, but I reliably remember a study where somebody goes into an office and pretends to have a cold. You know, they put pepper in their nose, so it's all streaming and you know, something in their eyes. And, and you know, 4 or 5 people in the office. It's a big office, like 20 people. 4 or 5 people come down with a cold, you know, just from seeing a fake cold and the notion. It's very interesting, isn't it? So, yeah, anyway, that's big advantage when you know that there's no contagion, or when you know that there's no evidence for contagion. But be careful. Yeah, there might be some elements of, I mean, for example, there are some notions of no, it's not really contagion so much. No, yeah. Anyway, let's park that side. But anyway, that's for me. First of all, I'm never going to kowtow to any medical law that says do that. I don't know about you. Did you wear a mask at the beginning? I wore one a couple of times. I was, you know, with somebody who was really very much into the narrative that we were given, and you know. So I
did wear a mask here and there, but only for the purposes of getting onto an airplane and flying between cities. Now, let me just quickly add to that. I did not get a PCR test, not even once. I didn't get a vaccine, not even once.
I've never had a PCR or a vaccine. Yeah.
And I did not get a fake vaccine passport either, because I didn't want to legitimize the data.
Yeah,
but I did wear I did wear a mask now and then, but that was only just to get by in some cases.
Well, exactly.
Also, go on.
Who'd be a purist? It's what you're saying. That's that 1-0 thing. Oh, if you ever wore a mask, even once, you're an agent of the WHO. You know, please, you know. That's what you know. This black and white business. I am absolutely with you on the binary stuff. It's very divisive, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I wore a mask. I eventually after I got one of these see-through visors. So we were allowed to wear these. It's a piece of plastic that goes like that. You know, holes here, holes there. That was fine. It was nonsense, wasn't it? It was completely.
But ridiculous. I think it was Peter Bregan who said to me that we need to be slightly more sympathetic. This was like, I think, in 2022 already.
He's a very kind man, isn't he, Peter?
Very kind, very loving man. And he said, he made a very, very interesting comment. He said, look, here's a thought experiment. You're on an airplane, it's full, 180 people. And every single person on the plane is wearing a mask. He said, do you know what the reason is for each person on that plane? Have you asked them? And in your thought experiment, ask them. And you'll most likely get a different answer for every single person.
I absolutely agree. And it's still a borderline difficult one, for example, because if your neighbour, who you've known and trusts you, at the thick of it, I mean, I'm not. This is a hypothetical. This doesn't happen. But if they're going out wearing a mask and they could talk to you and realise that at the time, because there was a time when it was really an amplifier of fear, everywhere you'd go, supermarkets and everything, and lone voices, people without them, were sort of, they were trailing a blaze and saying, "Look, I'm not afraid." So you can't judge people for not doing it, but you can understand. Well, I certainly felt a bit frustrated when. It
was frustrating for sure.
And I'm not as. I think Peter's a gentler person than I am. I am gentle at heart, and I love people. I want good faith with everybody, but I can get triggered and a bit. If I feel that there's some injustice happening, especially to lots of people, like for example with vaccination, millions of children are assaulted every day in the world. Every day, millions of children are violently assaulted, not only with toxins, but I think now, increasingly, what is worse, which is the biggest act, which is a woman sticking a big spike in your arm, a big metal spike in your arm, and you not only somebody you trust is holding there, smiling. We're not stupid, humans. Humans are not stupid. We know that sticking a big metal spike in your arm is not a good idea. We know it. So we're all completely these shocks, these biological shocks. It's like someone's been stabbed you with a knife or something.
Tim, I'm looking at the time.
Yes.
So we've just been rambling, but
I've been particularly rambling. Sorry.
But if anybody actually wants to follow your work, which I strongly recommend, your Substack is outstanding, and it's also a collab with Mike Yeadon, isn't it?
Well, there's my Substack is Beyond Certainty, which is where all my two-color protocol work and various other works on. Mike Yeadon's Substack is Dr Mike Yeadon, and I just edit things for him there. It's all his stuff on there. I mean, that one particular article I did gather the material myself because it was part of a bigger article, and I wanted to include a reference to all these studies because, when you're writing an article, Mike had his articles mentioning about the lack of, his words mentioning about the lack. So I thought, well, let's put evidence in. So I did do that article, but really, it's just for Mike, that one. So my own Substack is called Beyond Certainty, and I've got my music on there as well, and my theories, my new film coming up soon, which is, I reckon, is going to be mind-blowing because it blows my mind. It shows why the minute is the length it is. It seems a bizarre thing to say, but once you watch it, that's why they picked the minute, and it's very, very interesting. There's other things in it, but so that's Beyond Certainty, and Dr. Mike Yeadon is good.
But you also run Mike's Telegram channel, is that right?
Well, basically, so he didn't want, when he left Robin, he was all afloat, and I want his voice to the world. So basically, Mike's Substack is his Substack, he owns it. But Mike's Telegram, I set it up, so I sort of owned it, but then give him complete control over it. So he does all the posts on the channel, and in the comments he appears as the name of the channel, and I'm just admin. And it's one of my proud because he says to me that I've been helpful in getting his voice out, and that's just like, I do really think things would change if a lot more people heard Mike Yeadon, because he's so trustable and believable, because he's real, and when he says it, I think it's very powerful stuff, and he was hidden away for a long time. So I've gone off the subject. I know we're nearly finished. That's it. Oh, and I could mention my two bands very quickly. So I'm in a band called Hoaxwind, which is Hawkwind. I don't know if any of you, a lot of people will know Hawkwind, the classic space rock band, but we've recreated it like sound for sound. But the band I'm in that's all original music is called Akasha. Akasha, last album, Hail the Sun. I'm doing a gig tonight, actually. And if anyone's near... Oh, well, it won't go out today, will it? So there's no point saying. Thank you, Jerm, so much. I know I've been a bit rambly, but it's been so amazing for you to have me on and talk to me. And thanks very much.
Well, Tim, I just want to point out that substack piece of yours that I stumbled across, transmission failure, is... I don't think you understand how profound it is. I know you've downplayed it a bit, but I've referenced that piece so many times because what it shows, this is very important, what it shows is the last, 150 years, 200 years worth of
220,
attempts.
I think.
Yeah, the last 220 years of clinical attempts to show transmission of something pathogenic between humans has failed. Yeah. I mean, this is really, really important.
And plants too.
Yes,
they have to
and animals,
rub it into the skin. They scratch the skin and they rub in the stuff which is all manky. And look, the plant's getting. Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. I mean, it's the Rosenau experiments.
Yeah,
Spanish flu experiments.
The Spanish flu. Yeah.
It's like, hello, no,
and
zero.
It was funded. It was also funded by the US government.
Yeah. It's almost like they don't mind us knowing. Anyway.
Tim, got to go. Tim West, thank you for joining me in the trenches.
My pleasure.